Sure, it actually is live. Should be double check, make sure we're actually live because cool. My name is Michael Pepper Tech Talk. This is Thursday Tech Talk with our very wonderful and special guest over to my right. Everybody knows who he is or should know who he is, and if you don't, where have you been under a rock? Vyper, how are you?
I am good, Michael Pepper. How you doing, man?
Better now, It's been a crazy couple weeks too. It's perfect timing because I've been pretty busy. You've been busy. We finally both got a hold of each other when we weren't busy, and I got you when you weren't busy. And
That's right.
when things have kind of settled down and we have stuff to talk about again, because I feel like for a couple weeks it was all the same thing. It was all like everybody's waiting for the OnePlus event and everybody's waiting for this new Apple phone to come out and not knowing what it's called. Is it going to be called the SE? Is it the 9? Is it just going to be the iPhone? What are they calling this thing? The Magic Keyboard, we weren't really sure. We had a little insight into it, but we weren't really sure the experience of like what is this actually going to be like. And now we kind of have those answers as we see people already kind of reviewing some of these things, but we've also seen some people getting these devices early. How do you feel about that?
I mean, if you're talking about reviewers and things like that, they've always gotten devices early. Actually, not always. It seems like in the last 2 to 3 years, Apple has finally discovered that YouTube influencers hold weight. I mean, real weight. So Apple has finally gotten on the train of actually seeding review units to YouTubers and things like that. So shout out to Apple for joining the 21st century. Finally, Big Tim Cook, we see you, baby. We see you.
It's been interesting too, though, because I've been seeing, and it's kind of cool to see this too. Like, I think I tweeted to you that when I was scrolling through Apple News and your face was on one of the articles,
Oh
like a
yeah,
month and
right,
a
right.
half ago.
Right, because I was on the iMore show. So yeah.
But it's been cool to see there's a guy, and I can't think of his name right now, um, that I came across recently on YouTube who I don't know how he pulled it off, but he got his hands on the Magic Keyboard and was reviewing that before like Justine or Marquez or like anybody was, and so he's blasted all over like Apple News, Flipboard, the Google News feed, like in Chrome and all these things. Like he's just there and and he was smart about it. He went and he recorded all these videos and then he releases like one a day so that his name is there constantly and it's new things. And he didn't do like a all-in-one review up front so that he could kind of make you come back in it.
So you're talking about Mr. Exit Strategy. Yeah, I saw that too. He has like barely over 1,000 subscribers, but the first video he posted about the Magic Keyboard got about 70,000 views in 24 hours. And like you said, he was pretty intelligent about it because he spread his content out over the course of a week. And I think the reason why he got the Magic Keyboard first was because he pre-ordered it and somehow it happened to land in his lap first and he took advantage of it immediately, which is definitely something that you want to do if you are a content creator. If you can get your hands on a piece of heavily thought after tech before anybody else, you definitely should be rushing to put videos out. And he did it. And now you said, like you said, his name is all over the place. His videos all over, and he can get no views.
So we were talking about this a little bit. So you have some technology headed your way tomorrow. I don't know
do.
if you want to talk about that or if you want to leave that to your show tomorrow or.
Oh no! I mean, hell, I made like what 3 or 4 videos about it already. I mean, we've talked
I
about it
know.
ad nauseum. But yeah, I have an iPhone SE, red one, 64 GB, heading my way tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited about that. I know some people are like, "Oh, I'm not excited about it because it's just an iPhone SE." Listen, man, I am the man about tech. Anytime new tech comes, I'm gonna be excited. So I am still excited about this iPhone SE, even though right here in my hands here, I have an iPhone 11 Pro Max. Is it gonna replace my iPhone 11 Pro Max? Hell no. I don't care. It's new tech. It's a new iPhone. I don't care what iPhone it is. It's a new iPhone. I am the captain of Team Apple. So, of course, I'm excited about a new iPhone dropping. Like I said, I have it on the way. Right now, apparently, it's in transit from California coming to Illinois. So once I get that tomorrow, I'll be making more content with the device actually in hand, and I am excited. So let's go.
So, let's see here. I can't remember. Did you or are you getting the Magic Keyboard at all?
I want to, but I don't want to get one right now. See, the issue for me is that I have an 11-inch iPad Pro 2018. I want to get a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, but I want to get one of the newer ones, obviously. But I don't know when I'm gonna be able to do that because obviously that's a lot of money, and then you add on an additional $350 for the keyboard. So now you're talking about MacBook Pro price ranges, and Vyyyper bank account isn't speaking that language right now. So I gotta wait. So once I'm able to put those pieces together, then yes, I will be getting a Magic Keyboard. But I don't want to get it for my 11-inch because I don't want to do that. I want to get a bigger iPad Pro. So I'm just waiting.
That makes sense. I think I saw a couple people that were talking the same thing, kind of saying, "Hey, I got an 11-inch, and now that they have this trackpad and mouse support, and using it as an actual like full-on portable laptop experience, the larger screen would be better off. Using it alongside like their MacBook Pro. Like I know you got the 16-inch, so hooking that up as the secondary display, um, and sitting there, and even with the Magic Keyboard, the one thought I had about it is if you're sitting there and you're streaming, you could have your YouTube chat open up over on your, which I know you do this because I've
Right
seen your
now, actually, yeah.
setup
Yes,
over on your iPad,
I
and just
have your live stream right now on my iPad. Yes, so I can see my man
and
Battery Power talking about my latest comment on the stream.
and have it up higher so you're not crouching down. You
Right.
got that good elevation and sit there, and plus it's a similar experience I've heard as using it with your actual keyboard. Like they put basic similar keyboard technology into there, and it's been interesting to see too, because I contemplated getting I have the regular Bridge keyboard for my 11, and I contemplated getting the Bridge Pro Plus or whatever, the new
Right.
one.
Yep.
But then when I looked at some of the stuff, I was like, this might sound crazy, but the extra like $100 would be worth it because of that extra port. You don't have to charge the thing. If your iPad's charged, it's good to go. You don't have to worry about like I was doing this funky thing the other day where I had an adapter plugged into the USB-C port of my iPad. Actually, right here, I think it is. I had this thing plugged into the iPad, and then out of this, I had a cable going to the keyboard, and then I had the charger plugged into this, so it was charging my keyboard and my iPad, and then the keyboard can be wired connected to the iPad. And with Apple, they're smart about it. It's an all-in-one solution. Yeah, there's a few things that you have to go into software to change, going into your settings to adjust brightness. But you know what? You have your settings open in the background. You have it and you just control tab over to it, adjust your brightness, and control tab right back to where you were, and you have all the gestures. They work smoothly. You don't have the latency of Bluetooth. Um, the other thing I brought to somebody's attention the other day, my thought is if you're on an airplane, some of them don't want Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or anything on. So if you're sitting there and you're trying to type something up and you're on an airplane, you're gonna have to wait until they tell you can turn things back on with a Bluetooth keyboard, or hope that you can plug it in directly. And I just feel like, and I don't know if you saw this, but I thought this was awesome of Apple. If you have Apple Care Plus, it covers your Magic Keyboard with
Boom.
no additional cost.
That is pretty cool.
Just throwing it in there, like they consider it part of the hardware. Same thing with the Apple Pencil. So right there, if I mean, I don't know if do you know what because I know, like, for example, my iPhone 10, it was $250 for Apple Care if you paid all at once, $29 if you broke the screen for the down payment. Do you know what the like if you have to have something done with like what the down payment costs. I wonder.
That I am not sure. I think the Apple Care cost for the iPad and Magic Keyboard, I think it's like what, $180. I think if I remember correctly, I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know what the individual price breakdowns are. But going back to what you were talking about with the Magic Keyboard, it is definitely the best keyboard accessory that you can have for your iPad Pro if you have the money to get it. I mean, like you were talking about, it has the smart connector, which means you don't have to worry about connecting via Bluetooth. You can just plug the iPad into where the smart connector is, and it automatically connects. Like you said, the Magic Keyboard has that USB-C port for pass-through charging, which frees up the USB-C port on the actual iPad. So you can plug in an external hard drive or an external monitor or whatever you want to do. The Magic Keyboard gives you the maximum amount of versatility with your iPad Pro because it frees up that iPad Pro USB-C port. On top of the fact that the Magic Keyboard has that floaty design, which means that your iPad isn't touching the keyboard when it's connected to it. It has a slight raise above the keyboard. So if you have to touch the iPad, if you have to do those swipe gestures, the keyboard won't interfere with your gesturing like it does on other keyboards. I myself have a bridge keyboard, and one of the main issues that I have with my bridge keyboard is that the bottom of the iPad and the keyboard intersect. So if I want to swipe up from the bottom, I have to touch the keyboard first, then the iPad to swipe up. And it's not that big of a deal, but it does get kind of annoying. So the fact that Apple implemented that floating design on the Magic Keyboard to completely mitigate that is brilliant, and one of the reasons why Apple is the company that they are today.
I was gonna say I had a feeling exactly where you're going because I've dealt with the same thing. Like you go to swipe and it hits the bottom. That's what I. That's one thing I heard that people are getting used to with the Magic Keyboard with the 11-inch was that some people were having weird things with the top row because um the angle that they use in order to balance, because the 11-inch is narrower than the 12.9-inch, it actually puts it slightly lower. So some people were concerned about like they have to adjust it just right, but once you get it adjusted and once you figure it out, it's perfect.
Right. Yep.
And most everything that people were complaining about, like, oh, you need to adjust your volume or your brightness. Other keyboards have that on where you can adjust your volume for your iPad or your brightness, and it's not a just reach up and hit the buttons on the iPad itself, or use the trackpad to bring down the control panel and slide it there. I mean, there's things that are almost as quick. If you have to move your hands anyways, or if you're using AirPods.
See, here's the thing about that, though. Here's the thing about that. The whole premise behind the Magic Keyboard and the way Apple is marketing the iPad as a computer replacement. So if you're going to market a piece of technology as a computer replacement or a laptop replacement, if you have a laptop, you're not touching the screen because obviously most laptops aren't touchscreen. So there should be enough functionality in the keyboard where you don't have to touch the iPad if Apple wants to truly make it a laptop replacement. But since there is no function key, hell, it doesn't even have an escape key on the Magic Keyboard, then you have to resort to touching the actual iPad to, like you said, change the brightness or change the backlit keyboard, things like that. And it's just kind of inconvenient. Now, like you said, it's not really a big deal because we're used to touching our iPads anyway. But again, if you want to position this iPad, if you want to market this iPad Pro as a laptop replacement, then it should have all the functionality that you would get on a typical MacBook or a laptop, and it doesn't.
It is kind of weird because they positioned this, like you said, as a computer replacement, but then this keyboard, it's kind of almost singularly positioned. Like if you swing the iPad down, you can't tip it back very far. And then you have kind of a change in angles. You got to take the thing out and have a secondary case if you're going to use just the iPad, or it's unprotected when you disconnect it from the magnetic. It doesn't flip all the way around, which I guess that would be hard to do because if it flips all the way around, then you'd worry about the whole thing tipping over. So for me, I'm glad that they did what they did because I've used alternate I've used like the Surface, And the problem I have with the Surface is that kickstand, the way it kicks out. If you're putting that on your lap, it can be really uncomfortable and kind of cut into your lap. Unless you have something to balance that on, it can be kind of awkward. And the way Apple did it, I mean, they have their own, and I feel like a lot of this is going to be fixed in software updates too. Like we'll see maybe things, for example, instead of having to go into your settings to adjust your brightness, that they could put a brightness setting in the control panel that pops up when you connect the keyboard and things like that, that intelligently takes over.
Right. So, noted Apple developer or noted iOS developer Federico Fertucci already created a Siri shortcut to get to the brightness settings on the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard, so you don't have to keep digging. I think he just set up a Siri shortcut to just go to it automatically and change it. So, man, people have already found workarounds for this. But like you said, Apple should do some type of software update to make it easier to access those settings. Since I mean, that's a big part of having the keyboard in the first place, though.
And I guess one of the things I've seen brought up too is that the auto brightness. It uses the sensors from the iPad for auto brightness. So I think Apple's thinking as well, just like they kind of do with everything else, we'll handle that for you, versus like giving you the and if you want the choice, well, you can go into settings and adjust it. But if it's bright day out, we'll just turn it off for you. The darker it gets, we'll adjust the brightness. But that has its downsides, because I've had some issues with that. Like I'm sitting there. I've had one time I was laying there, I had my iPad propped up, I'm watching a movie. My wife decides to turn on her phone, and she didn't have auto brightness on, and it was full brightness.
Ooh.
The sensor on my iPad picked up the brightness of hers and dimmed the iPad way down.
Wow.
So I was like, so there's that flaw. But like I said, I feel like there's reasoning behind what they do. I mean, one thing I've noticed lately is a lot of people want Apple and iPhones to behave like Microsoft and Android. Like their complaints are kind of that they want things that Apple's not really about. They want all these crazy customizations. They want all the stuff. If you want that, don't buy an don't buy an iPhone, don't buy an iPad, don't buy the product that's right for you. It's Apple has always been about kind of simplicity and like it just works.
Well, that's all fine and dandy, but Apple is introducing more and more customization and flexibility into their products every single year. So when they open up that Pandora box, people expect more and more of it, and some stuff Apple will do, some stuff Apple won't do. But where my complaint is, Michael, and what I want Apple to do is give us something that is already in existence, but for whatever reason, it is not present on iOS and iPhones. And that, my friend, is picture-in-picture and actual real-life multitasking on iPhone. There is no excuse for this crap, Michael. None. Why? Because it already exists on iPad. It'd be one thing if it wasn't possible on the iOS software. But we know that's not true, because on iPad, you got split-screen multitasking, you got slide over, you got float over. You can run 3 apps on the iPad at the same damn time. So there's no reason why we can't do something similar on iPhone. Maybe you have like a multi-window effect like you got on these Samsung devices. You can do that on iPhone. There's no reason why you can't do it on iPhone. Like I said, especially considering it's already being done on iPad. And then there's picture-in-picture. Now, on iPad is kind of limited because you can only do it from the Safari browser and things like that. But still, if possible, you can do it on iPad. Picture-in-picture exists. So there's no reason why picture-in-picture cannot exist on iPhone when the coding and framework has already been put in place on iPad OS. What is the problem, Michael? Where is this stuff at? When are we going to get it on iPhone?
I just thought about something.
I stopped them, y'all. I stopped Michael Pepper.
No, I just thought about something. So I have an iPhone 4. And you remember iOS 7 when they had the bar that popped up from the bottom and your app icons were there, and then you could slide over and get to your music or whatever media was playing, and you could control it in there. You remember those days way back before we had like the dock on the main
Ooh, that's a long time ago. Yeah.
Um, why don't they bring something similar back where, okay, we got a dock on the iPad from swiping up from the bottom. Like, just give us swipe up from the corner and give us a dock on the iPhone so you don't have to go to the home screen to open an app that's on your dock but you don't have open, because you can swipe between apps, but that relies on you having it open already. You could put 4 folders down in your dock, essentially have like a media, a like media, social media, photo and videography, and like a other folder, and have all your apps sorted into there. And then if you want to get to them from another app, just swipe up, hit the folder, go to it. You don't have to go home. That's the way I could see Apple handling it, instead of giving us something too much like Android with a full-on app drawer, because they already have that on the iPad where you can put folders down in the dock. Um,
I don't know. Whatever it is, they need to figure it out because the iPhone's lack of multitasking only gets more and more egregious each and every year. It's ridiculous.
and there's no excuse for. So here's the thing. I did the math on this recently. The iPhone 11 Pro Max resolution versus my 11-inch iPad Pro resolution is like 8% difference, something like that. If you multiply, it's so in theory, my iPhone 11, I will consistently get 14, 16 hours of screen on time. So even if you were to consider the size of the resolution difference of the iPhone and do what I can, and I can get 12, 13 hours of screen on time on my iPad with LTE, so it has all the same chips, right? Not talking about, oh, my iPad doesn't have data connections that it's dealing with, or cellular, or stuff that's running in the background like that. Yes, it has a larger battery, but considering you should still be able to get 10 to 12 hours of screen on time split screening on an iPhone, if an iPad can get that and the iPhone consistently gets like 30 to 40% more screen on time for me. There's no reason behind that. There's no reason. The way Apple handles background processes already, the way that they tell you that you actually shouldn't close out things in the back because it makes it worse because it has to reload the app entirely. The way the processors are already, I mean, last year's A13 processor was so far ahead of the 855 that even when the 865 came out and was 30% faster, technically it's still behind. So if Android has been able to do this for like 5 generations or whatever of devices or longer, and Apple's A13 can do the exporting speeds that it can and has the processing speed, there's no reason why they can't. And my old 9.7-inch iPad Pro could do it, which was way slower than the A13 chip, I can tell you that.
Listen,
It can
Michael
handle
Pepper.
it.
You listen to me very closely, Michael Pepper. I don't want to hear anything about not closing iOS apps because the damn thing closed themselves anyway. The RAM management on iOS is so atrocious, it makes me want to puke in my own mouth. It's ridiculous. I can leave an app open, come back to it, and it reloads anyway. So what the hell's the difference, Michael? I might as well close it and go back to it when I need it because I wasn't going to close it for me anyway because the RAM management is just that putrid and horrid and atrocious to begin with. But again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about multitasking on iPhone. There is no reason why it should not exist because it does exist on iPad. The coding, the framework, the base code already exists for iPad. So there is no reason why we should not have basic multitasking on iPhone when the coding is already in place on iPad. There is no excuses.
My only thought would be that Apple doesn't want to make that so that like it's only available on like the Pro Max or something, and that the smaller device that they don't feel like the screen would be big enough, like on a
Well,
5.8-inch.
okay, fine. Then do that. Then I know we know they did that with the iPhone Plus model. The Plus model had that
That's true.
that slide, that split view or whatever they called it. It wasn't really multitasking, but it did give you another view when you rotated in landscape, and you could only do that on the Plus model. So fine, give me multitasking. If you're gonna limit it to the Pro Max models, I'm okay with that because I get the Pro Max models any damn way. So I'm all good with that. But bring it to iPhone, please, like yesterday.
That is true. Like and then they took it away. They gave it to us and then they took it away, which
I mean,
is weird.
it was useless anyway, so who cares?
And
But it was useless.
now they brought certain things back, like in iMessage where you can have your messages over on the side, and then you have the
that's the split view or whatever what they
yeah,
call it.
they brought some of that stuff back,
But
but
again,
still,
that's not multitasking. That's just split view.
no.
That's nothing.
And you already have, for example, you're watching a video and a message comes in from the top where you can press and hold on it and you can respond in that overlaid window.
Yep.
So the next step would be for me to be able to just grab that window and hold it and bring it to the bottom, and now it's in the bottom of the screen and I have split screen. I mean, they're literally 99.9% of the way with literally just adding that one option to do it. Like you said, it's already an iPad OS, so bring it on over. I mean, they're merging stuff as we've seen, as you've seen Max Weinbeck, and as you've seen John Prosser, and as you've seen these different ones talking about Xcode coming on over, and potentially Final Cut, and some of these different ones merging over to iPad OS.
I'll believe it when I see it.
We'll see.
I will not believe Final Cut Pro on iPad until I see it. We have been talking about this for years, and Apple has done nothing to move on it. But maybe with the addition of Xcode on iPad OS, maybe we will finally see these pro-level Apple apps finally make their way to iPad. It will make sense considering Apple has been working on Project Catalyst for a few years now, and the whole purpose of Project Catalyst is to merge iOS and then macOS apps. So it would only make sense that at some point Apple will have enough development behind them to be able to finally bring the pro level apps to iPad, because God knows we know the iPad is powerful enough to handle them. So there's no reason why they shouldn't be running on iPad.
Somebody brought up something in the chat and made me think about this too. iPad mini 7.9-inch can do split screen and multitasking. iPhone 11 Pro Max is 6.5 inches. I just did the math in my head. That's what, 80% of the screen size? So
6.5 inches. There's no excuse, Michael. Just say what you want to say, Michael. There's no damn excuse. There's no excuses. None. Ridiculous.
I don't know what is going on. Like, it's I miss Steve Jobs every day because he wouldn't have allowed a lot of this stuff to go on.
I mean, we know Apple is competent enough to make it happen. Hell, they put an A13 Bionic chip in a $400 iPhone. Come on now. What are we talking about here?
Exactly. A $400 iPhone that can do things that phones twice its cost.
That's right. A $400 iPhone that can run laps around all of the Android competition. So I don't want to hear things that Apple can't do. I want to hear what Apple can and will do.
Or even a $549 one if you get it all decked out with 256 gigs of storage. You can hit 4K recording and record until that thing is full if you want.
Boom.
And that's one thing I want to see. So keep this in mind, if you would, when you do your review. I want to know if they implemented any of like the zoom in audio like they've been doing on the last couple generations, where when you zoom in, when you're shooting video and it highlights the voice, And then, Samsung did that with like their Note, but they were kind of awful. Like if you watch the comparison, it was just there was really no comparison. It was weird because Samsung did it by cranking up the volume. Apple did it by isolating the sound and turning it up, and it was just different. But I'd be curious to know what the limitation functionality is as far as some of that, because I know like obviously the night mode isn't there, but the HDR handling is brilliant. The bokeh mode depth of field is there. So I'd just be curious to know audio wise. I guess that depends on the number of microphones and things like that partially too, but
Yeah, I think that's more of a hardware thing than software. But I guess it'll be interesting to test it and see how that turns out.
and then think about if this is the iPhone SE2. Now what's going to happen in 2024 when the iPhone SE3 comes out, and what's that going to be based on? Is that going to be like based on the iPhone 10? Because if they do every 4 years, they come out with, because what the previous one was 2016. If every 4 years they're doing this,
I'm kind of curious about that because if the iPhone SE sells like we all think it will, that being it'll be the top selling smartphone of the entire 2020, will Apple just keep doing it every 4 years? I mean, at that point, they have to consider doing it maybe annually or every 2 years, maybe, because that's revenue that they're leaving on the table if they just release it once every 4 years. And that's not like Apple to leave revenue on the table. That they just don't do stuff like that. So I am curious if the iPhone SE is successful as we think it will be, will Apple kind of ramp up the production? Because we know next year, supposedly, an iPhone SE Plus is on the table. So maybe there'll be another iPhone SE3 after maybe in 2022. I don't know. It's interesting.
yeah. Could we see it shift? So instead of doing what they've done in the previous years, where they'll take the previous generations and they make them still available, where they made the 8 and the 8 Plus that stepped down. Then instead of doing that, now they'll just take the older body but put the newer hardware in it, because then it's a little bit more expensive because they can just sell ones that they've already manufactured or things like that, but they've already done all the R&D. They've already done all the made all the parts for the equipment. They've already put all the expenses into it, basically. And the advantage of that too would be developers, because instead of them being like, oh, and they still support the older phones, but for those people who upgrade every 2 to 3 years, and think about the shocker on that. Like, if you were one of these people that got an iPhone 8 Plus and that thing topped out at like, what was that, right around $1,000, and now that's the mid cost of the top tier phones, like that's the cost of the 11 Pro. That's quite the shocker if you're going to update and now to get what's considered the top tier, you're talking about $1,500. So it's a smart move on their part to offer the processor that everybody wants, the updates, and for people that just want what they want and don't need all the crazy new stuff.
So I think we got people in the chat talking about Apple will not cannibalize themselves, and I'm here to tell you they have, and they will, and they will continue to. We just got an iPad Pro released this year, only 2 years after the iPad 2018 iPad Pro, and there's reports that another iPad Pro is going to be released later this year. Hell, and if you don't think Apple will cannibalize themselves, they released the second gen AirPods, and then 6 months later they released the AirPod Pros. So don't think that Apple is above cannibalizing themselves, because they will, and they will continue to cannibalize themselves, because Apple doesn't care. There are no F in the F field when it comes to Apple cannibalizing themselves, because they want the revenue. They want the money. They want the revenue by any means necessary. as long as it's going in their pocket. So they don't really care if they're cannibalizing themselves because the money is going to Apple regardless. That's why we're gonna get this. We got this iPad Pro, and we might get another one down the road. That's why we got AirPods 6 months apart. That's why this iPhone SE is coming, and then the iPhone 12 is coming later this year. Apple don't care, man. They just there to make the money. Apple is out to make this money, honey, and they're gonna do it however they see fit. So that whole point of Apple not cannibalizing themselves, you can throw that out the window. They're gonna do that anyway.
They did that. They did that. When the first iPad Pros came out, the 12.9 came out, and then the 9.7 came out, like the following March, and then they updated both of them, later that year when they went to the 10.5. They released a 10.5 and 12.9 like 6 months after they did the 9.7, and then they started releasing, and then the third generation, both of the now we have both of them being updated at the same time. So they don't care. They just want more products out there. You can't sell it if you don't make it.
Exactly. And like I said, we had the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus come out, and then 2 months later, the iPhone 10 came out. And then you had 3 iPhones last year. You had the 11, actually it was the 10R, the 10S and 10S Max, and then last year the 11 Pro Max, and 11 Pro. So, I mean, Apple is going to make the money any way they can make it. I think they're trying to move to more of a Samsung-like business model where they want a product for every price tier. Because, again, an Apple product at every price tier makes Apple a ton of money. And I think that's where they're moving to.
Yeah, it's better to sell 5 $400 phones than 0 $1,500 phones.
There you go.
So you can pull people in, because there are people out there that literally they just want they want an Apple or a Samsung device because that's the names they know, and they want it at whatever price point they can get and get the best out of it. So they walk into the store and they say, I got $400. What can you give me that's not last year's devices, that's not a different processor? What can you give me for my kid that they're not going to be picked on? What can you give me, that I can throw in my pocket and will get support for the next 4 or 5 years, just like the iPhone 11s that just came out? What can you give me that is easy to use? There's a lot of concerns in there.
And the other thing that I almost forgot to mention is that it's not about the hardware as much for Apple anymore as it is about the services. So Apple doesn't care if they're selling a $400 iPhone or a $1,000 iPhone. Once you have that iPhone, you are now indoctrinated into the Apple ecosystem, which means you are now exposed to iCloud, Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, Apple News, anything they could sell you to make that services revenue, because obviously we all know that iPhone sales are on the decline each and every year. So Apple has to find new and innovative ways to make revenue. So if that means taking a hit on the hardware cost, then they're going to take that hit. But once they have you in the hardware, you are now in the ecosystem, which means you are now viable and eligible to be in those Apple services or purchase those Apple services. I mean, think about it. They gave away Apple TV Plus free for a year to anybody that brought an iPhone 11, 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max last year. Most people are probably going to forget to cancel the subscription, so they're going to be automatically billed for it later this year anyway, because they're going to forget about it. And then, they got their hooks into you. So again, Apple services is the name of the game. It's not so much about hardware. I don't think Apple minds losing a little bit on the hardware side if they know they're going to make it back on the software side.
And then imagine the person that buys that $400 iPhone, and they're like, oh, I really like this, and I like this iMessage and FaceTime, and I like typing on here, and I like all this stuff. What else can I get? And then they see an iPad, and they go, oh, I can buy an iPad for $329. Well, I'll get that. Oh, I can buy, and then I get an Apple Pencil for another $100 in there, and I get a key, I get a keyboard for that or a case for that. By the time you know it, the $400 iPhone is now like $900 that they've worth of stuff beyond that they've sold.
Quick, man. It happened quick. It happened quicker than you realize, and before you know it, you're already in the deep end, baby. It happened quick.
Apple's giving you that taste so they can get you.
Seriously, that's the name of the game. Software.
But there's no other. I've yet to experience anything like it And that's why I always carry at least 2 phones, sometimes 3. One is always an iPhone, and then I have an Android phone because, well, in my opinion, I shouldn't be talking about technology if I haven't at least carried something around and could know how it works and have things to compare it to. And I'm not gonna say that one company offers the best if I can't even say why, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're only buying Apple products, you're doing tech reviews and stuff, and somebody goes, "Well, why is that better than Samsung for you?" Or why is that why do you like that? You know, like you can talk about it,
You are
but
absolutely
you
right.
shouldn't if you're not
You are.
using it.
I find it hilarious that we're both holding Android devices in our hands if we talk about Apple. But you are absolutely correct, though. If you haven't experienced the Android side of the ledger, then you are not in a position to give up an opinion about one versus the other. That's why I like to have both devices, because then I can give my honest opinion and experiences on both sides of the ledger. I have an iPhone 11 Pro Max. I have a Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. So when people ask me which one is better, iOS or Android, I can give them specific experiences as it relates to each platform and what might be advantage to them considering what they're looking for in a smartphone. So if you are a tech reviewer on YouTube, you got to dip your toe in both sides. You just can't play on one side. Now, obviously, when we're talking about the algorithm and how you grow a channel, that's different because YouTube only likes you to stay in one lane when it comes to subject matter. But again, if you're going to give an expert opinion on the other side, you got to be on the other side to talk. If you're not on the other side, then you can't talk. So I completely agree with you when you say that if you want to talk about Android, if you're an iPhone person and you want to talk about Android, you better own an Android, or at the very least, you better have played and experienced an Android before you open your mouth. Because if you open your mouth and you don't have that experience, then what are you saying? You're not saying nothing. You're not saying nothing.
It's like somebody recently told me, they're like, how can you talk to anybody about so much? Like, how is it that you can have Joan on here and talk to her about audio? How is it that I could have Savage Scientist on here and talk to him about Linux and all this stuff? How is it you can have Vyper on here and talk to him about, all the, because I use it. I just don't always talk about, like, literally, okay, in front of me, I have an HP branded monitor that I'm using, a Logitech webcam, a Red Dragon keyboard and mouse, a PC that I built, a Scarlett 2i2 audio interface, an AKG P120 microphone, a 2013 MacBook Air. Over to my side somewhere here, I have a Lenovo ThinkPad laptop with Linux on it. I have my iPhone 11 Pro Max. I have
This
my
man is flexing right now,
S20.
y'all. He's flexing over here.
I have that Jay Williams sent me, this beautiful red Honor 8X.
Wow, he is really flexing right now. Woo!
There's an LG phone, LG G8 down there.
The flex is real, y'all. The flex is real out here.
The smallest phone in the world, pretty much. The little palm phone.
Oh my lord, you have the palm. Why do you have the palm though? What is going on here?
I won that. Adam did Tech Odyssey did the giveaway.
Oh.
And I actually used it for a week. Mm-hmm. And it was, you want to talk about a phone that's shocking for photo quality and video quality. If you go back and anybody watches the video I did on that, I literally shot every single clip from that with that phone.
Okay.
But that's my thing, is like credibility. You gotta, I mean, you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta experience it. And
so somebody in the chat asked me if I'm getting the iPhone SE to actually use it as a second device or just for review purposes. Well, if I'm being honest, it's basically going to be just for review purposes. I mean, I'll use it. I'm gonna end up using it a lot anyway because obviously it's an iPhone and I'm an iPhone person. But at the end of the day, it's not going to replace my iPhone 11 Pro Max or my S20 Ultra. But I will use it enough to give you an honest opinion when I drop the review on it. So trust me when I tell you, I have multiple lines with Verizon, so that's not even an issue. It's going to be on the line. It's going to get used. I'm going to tell you my honest opinion about it. It's not going to take long because it's an iPhone, and I've reviewed iPhone for every year for like the last 3 years. So, I mean, it's not a new experience as far as iPhones go. So, it shouldn't take me no more than a week to review it. So yeah, I'm gonna review it. I'm gonna use it and review it and do it like I do every other phone I have.
I mean, kind of my thought with that question would be, knowing you, it would be both. I mean, you're going to use it. It's kind of
Yeah,
hard to do a review and not use it. Like, you
right,
kind of have
right,
to do
right.
both.
You gotta have to use it, right? I mean, you gotta.
And I've been doing this subconsciously before I even got into this. I'd get a device and you kind of review it in your head because that's what you do to decide if you're going to keep it, right? You weigh the pros and cons. You look at like, what am I getting out of this, or what can other people get out of this? And then if you don't need it, or it doesn't do something for you, or I guess you're not keeping it just to keep it, or whatever your deal is, you return it. And that's,
You
I
know, see,
mean,
here's the thing about me though. I don't buy technology to review it and return it. I don't. I'm not that dude. So
no.
I am gonna keep it. It'll be in my rotation because obviously it's one of the newest iPhones, even though it's not top of the line, top tier spec wise. I'll use it daily because I mean it'll be in my phone rotation. Like I said, I have multiple lines with Verizon, so it's not like it won't be getting service. So I'm not gonna
Yeah,
return it. I'm gonna keep it because I don't buy tech to return. I don't do that.
me either. I don't buy anything like,
Now, like now
if
that
I wouldn't suggest it to somebody else, perhaps, or haven't done the research, I'm probably not going to buy it, because then I know for sure, most likely, if I just hop into something, it's like I'm going to buy it just to buy it, then that's when I might end up being in that struggle, like, oh, I'm just going to return it because I don't know anything, I don't know what
yeah,
I'm getting.
yeah, it's not to say that I have not returned stuff before because if I buy something and it doesn't meet my expectations, then hell yes, I'm going back. I'm returning it immediately. But I don't buy technology just to review and return because especially with the coronavirus. I'm definitely not doing that with the coronavirus going on right now.
Uh-uh.
We're not doing that at all. So yeah, anything I buy now, I'm definitely holding on to for the long haul because yeah, that's what it is. But generally speaking, I don't buy tech to return it. I'm a tech dude. I don't buy something unless I'm genuinely interested in that product. So yeah, I don't really have that issue. Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's,
contractor. I don't do the catch and relief, baby. I don't do that.
no, no. It's, it's funny because people might think, it's like, oh, he has all this stuff. Well, most of this is accumulated over time, and the reason I've gotten stuff is like, oh, okay, I need a new phone. My old phone was broken. I needed a new phone, so I get it, and it's multi-purpose. Because as you know, when you're growing your channel, unless you have the means to do it, it's probably not the smartest thing to just go put your money out there and buy like $20,000 in devices just to review them. Because, for example, until you get monetized, you're not making anything out of it, right?
Still not making anything when you get monetized.
Not unless you have a sponsorship or something.
And
So
even when you get monetized, you're not making anything.
no. So,
But
it's pretty
but
cool to see how similar we are in those ways. It's like,
yeah,
yep,
now here's the
smart
thing.
moves.
Here's the thing. Like I said, I don't buy tech to just review it and return it. But if down the line I have it and I don't need it, I will sell it because obviously I need money to get new tech. So
Oh yeah.
I will sell tech down the line if I don't need it anymore. I'll pawn it off or do whatever I need to do with it to get rid of it. But I will get rid of stuff because obviously my bank account doesn't speak money tree. So sometimes I do have to sell a lot of the tech that I get to make room for new tech. So I will do that. But yeah, man, it's just it's interesting, man. This is an interesting time. This is an interesting time that we are living in right now with the pandemic going on and things like that. So, battery power is asking me, what is my favorite review or favorite piece of tech in the last few years? We probably probably my favorite review I've ever done personally, or one of them anyway, is the review I did for the iPhone 11, no, 10s Max, the iPhone 10s Max. Yeah. I was mad AF on that review. I kind of went off, man, because I think I was still mad because the iPhone didn't have multitasking. So I was talking about that. I was talking about some issues I was having with touch on the iPhone 10s Max. So I was kind of mad. So I kind of went in on that review. Not a review that Apple wants to look on favorably, probably, but I think I was positive for the most part. But yeah, man. But as far as my favorite piece of tech, probably the Apple Watch or the AirPods. Probably the Apple Watch, man. a Apple Watch 3 4, which is what you're talking about in the chat there. The 3 4 is like it was just such a leap and bounds over the 3 3. And when they added the EKG on there, I was just game changer for me personally. So I think my favorite piece of tech over the last few years would have to be the Apple Watch 3 4.
What would Apple have to change, add, or other for you to then upgrade?
All right, so like I said, I'm still wearing my 3 4, and so obviously I didn't get the 3 5 because that was just an incremental upgrade at best. But I don't know, man. Like I really want Apple to incorporate smart bands. I know there are patents out there for it, but we haven't seen anything yet. But I think this is a prime opportunity for Apple to develop smart bands, swappable bands that have different functionality. I mean, there's no reason why they can't do it. I'm pretty sure they could develop the tech. There are a bunch of smart people over there at the Spaceship in Cupertino. They can figure it out. But if they made an Apple Watch with that were capable or compatible with smart bands, that would be game changing. I mean, that will be almost as big as the original iPhone. So I think they need to figure out a way to do that. And if they can do that, then you definitely got my attention.
I know they did, or there was a company that did a couple years ago, and then Apple did a software update that stopped it. There was the company that had the battery, the watch band that had battery built into it to add additional power.
Oh.
And see, I thought that what was going to happen is Apple was going to buy them out and be like, oh, that's a good idea, because it used the connectors, because there's proprietary connectors. I don't know if people know this, but there's proprietary connectors where the watch bands connect. And there's actually a device that if you send an Apple Watch into Apple and you're having issues, that they slide in there, and that's how they connect it up to a computer, because
Right.
there's no data connection through your charging.
Right.
So this company basically figured out a way to take advantage of that and provide extra battery power until Apple did like one of those X.X.1 updates. So people spent money on a watch band, spent extra money, and then an update killed it. And it'd be interesting to see. Have you seen any of the rumors about, like, for example, like drowning detection and like panic attacks and all that
No,
health awareness that they're talking about?
I've seen nothing like that. The only rumors I've seen so far are for like sleep tracking and blood sugar and stuff like that, but nothing like drowning or anything like that. So no.
Yeah, apparently they're going to be using the sensors like they use for where it tells you to hit the button to eject water. They're going to be using sensors, motion detection, to figure out, okay, he's struggling, he's panicking, he's in water, he might, and alert somebody, which I think is awesome because, well, when I was almost 3 years old, about 3 years old, I almost drowned in a river. So for me, it's like a personal thing. And then the whole anxiety thing, I know there's several people in the tech community that deal with anxiety, and that's something I deal with myself. And I just think it's awesome. I mean, they alert you already. You should stand up. The environment around you is too loud. They're pretty sensitive to personal health as far as heart rate, protecting your ears, all sorts of things. Even if you crank the volume up too loud on your phone, it will tell you, hey,
Yep.
be careful. If you have Bluetooth headset connected and you try to turn it up, it will warn you too. So it'd be pretty cool to see some of that implemented in there. And some of it's hardware, some of it's software. And I'll be curious to see how far back those updates go, because of course we know that with recent Apple Watch updates, I think it was for Series 0 and Series 1 that aren't supported anymore. And so it'll be interesting to see how far back they go. And
I don't know, but even as much as Apple has already done with the Apple Watch, the sky is the limit for them to add on to it and make it do even more. I mean, I think the Apple Watch is probably the one Apple product that is primed for the biggest explosion as far as popularity and usability and things like that. There is so much more they can do with the Apple Watch that they haven't even scratched the surface of yet. So I'm excited to see what they do with it in the years to come.
if they put pins in it, you know how So like the 4 pins on your iPad Pro that connect with the keyboard,
Smart connector. Yep.
the smart connector, if they put that on an Apple Watch, but with the idea for health use, so let's say you put a blood pressure cuff on your arm and you pop your Apple Watch into that cuff. So for medical professionals, for doctors and hospitals and things like that, they could just pop this thing into a blood pressure cuff, have it sync up with an Apple computer in the doctor's office, and then they just put it on somebody and it checks and the blood pressure is monitored, sends from the Apple Watch, syncs up through the cloud to the computer. Can you imagine the potential? Like, there's personal use for that, which would be kind of a niche, but for professional use, I mean, that's where I see these things going, it working as an interface for more than just being an Apple Watch, because it isn't just a watch. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably 1% of what you use it for. So it'll be cool to see where they're going and what's next. Battery life,
Yeah, I think
graphene battery,
they
all sorts of things.
really need to find a way to extend the battery life. 'Cause I think that might be the biggest thing holding back the Apple Watch right now. I mean, not that the battery life is bad, but I know there are other watches out there that have like a week worth of battery life or a month worth of battery life, so they can definitely stand to make the battery life last longer. But the Apple Watch does so much. I don't even know how much they can add to the battery, given all the features and functionality of the Apple Watch. Man, it like I said, you got a heart monitoring right now. You got LTE. You got GPS. Like there's so much tackling the watch right now already. If Apple keeps adding to that, I don't know how much more you can increase that battery life, but they need to find a way.
Yeah, because that will be I know people had that's what people had problems with the Series 5, was they had to go and turn off all the things that they basically put in there, and the reason why they bought. I know some people bought they upgraded from the Series 3 to the Series 5, and they turned off the always on display because the
Yep.
battery life.
Yep. I'll bender up this month. You need two Apple Watches, one for day and one for night. Right. I mean, maybe if I had that Bender 2 bank account, maybe. Oh man.
That is another. I wonder if we'll see faster charging on the Apple Watch, because, for example, they promote the fall sensing, but if you are somebody taking advantage of that, which by default, if you put your age in and you're not, was it 55 or older, it doesn't turn
65.
on. 65 or older, it
Yep.
doesn't turn on.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see the issue or thought I had with that is, so you got to take the thing off once it dies to charge it, and it takes a while. It's not like super fast, it takes a decent amount of time. And so then while you have it off, what happens if you fall?
Yeah. Like you make a good point. I don't know.
Well, that's where I could see the accessories of a band coming into play, like you're talking about. They could even make a band where you can have the band on your arm and you could plug into it and it can charge while it's on you. So you just plug into that. So for somebody who's older, they go to bed, they don't want to take the thing off, plug into the band. It's
Yeah.
charging. Once it's charged, just unplug it.
Yeah, but if it doesn't become an overheating issue, that's definitely possible.
Yeah, that's true. That's the only problem. They fall asleep and they start a fire. That would be a concern. We don't need any of that.
Yeah. But I'm about to get a run in here pretty soon, Mike.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for swinging on by
yeah, man. Thank you
for
for
a little
having me.
while and chatting, and I'd like to have you back sometime, and
we can do it
we
again.
can. I know I have some requests for from a couple people. They said, "Hey, when are you going to have him on for one of your creator interviews?" I'm like, "Well, hey, gotta have him on. Have a chill stream first. Have some fun. We can do that. We'll figure that out later. I just it's so
Yeah,
I
man,
appreciate it.
just let me know, man.
Thank you. I'll be watching. I'll be watching tomorrow night. I'm assuming there's another that you'll be doing Friday night Vype live.
Oh, you already know, man. You already know.
and I'll be watching that, and I'm sure everybody in the chat will be watching that. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for coming on through, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Vyper, for coming on out, chatting, yelling at me when I needed him to, knocking some sense into this guy. He is the captain of Team Apple, after all. You know, the captain's got to knock his team around every once in a while, right? So, and with that, this has been another episode of Thursday Tech Talk with Michael Pepper, Tech Talk, and Vyper. Do you have any closing things you'd like to say?
This your boy Vyper, the man about tech. You know where to find me, so come back for more.
Good night, everybody.